As we move into our sublesson 5.3, we're going to look at working with password settings to wrap up our service authentication and account policies that we've been discussing throughout this lesson. And we're going to focus primarily in here on looking at what we can do for delegating password setting management. That's probably one of the most tedious tasks that we have as an IT pro. I forgot my password. Can you reset it for me? I can't even imagine how many calls go to the help desk. What we're going to do right off the bat is show you how to delegate that task so it's one last thing that you have to worry about so you can focus on bigger things like managing account policies. In our server manager, we're going to tools and we're going right back to ADUC. It's been a little while since we've been there. We need to check on it to make sure it's doing okay. And then we're going to go ahead and right click on our domain. We're going to choose delegate control. We've already been through something similar, but we're going to make this much simpler. We're going to add a group or user. Remember, we're going to want to use global groups because they're security groups. We can add users to those, pop users in and out of that global group, making this delegation of control much easier. We have a GG out there. Remember, I use a naming convention. I created a GG all admins. That's what it was. I'll go ahead and do an OK. And then I'll go ahead and do a next. And this is the baby right here. Reset user passwords and force password change at next logon. So this allows users within the GG All Admins group to reset passwords. They can be on the help desk doing this, and it's going to allow them to reset the password and force the user to reset it the next time they log in. Go ahead and click next, click finish, bingo. We've just saved ourselves a plethora of calls because we have our help desk taking care of resetting of passwords instead of us performing the password resets. So up to this point, we've talked about service accounts, we've talked about domain account policies, as well as local account policies, and it briefly just showed you how to delegate resetting of passwords to your help desk. But when you think about the account policies, right now they're applied to an individual computer or their entire domain. But what if we have a group of users that we want to have specific password policies on? They're working in our intellectual property or proprietary information, and we want that information more secure. We want them to change their passwords every 20 days versus the default 42. Well, we can't really do that unless we use what are called PSOs, password setting objects. Now, this was introduced in Windows Server 2008, and your domain functional level has to be Windows Server 2008. In Server 2016, it actually creates a new container for you called a password settings container. There is not a PSO for an organizational unit, but we can work around that by creating what's called a shadow global group, add all the users in the OU as members to that group, and then you can apply the account policy to the group. Because remember, we can apply them to the groups, to the users, or to the iNet.org person objects. If we want to perform these steps using the GUI, we're going to use the AD Administrative Center, or we can use PowerShell. We have two commands we can use here. New-AD fine-grained password policy creates the PSO and assigns the properties that you identify via the parameters. And then our second PowerShell command, add-fine-grained password policy subject. This will link the PSO that you created in the previous PowerShell command to the users and groups that you defined with the parameter. Here's an example of those two PowerShell commands. New-AD fine-grained password policy, complexity enabled, lockout duration, lockout observation window. These should all sound familiar. We went through all of these when we went through the domain and local account policies. And then our second command, the add-AD fine-grained password policy subject, is how we link that PSO to a group of users. Let's step out and take a look at what we'll see as part of the Active Directory Administrative Center when working with PSOs. So as you can see, we're back in Server Manager. We're going to Tools, Active Directory Administrative Center. And inside of here, we are going to go to Manage in the top right-hand side and add a navigation node. And it's AZMTP. We're going to scroll down in the center, and we're going to find System. And we're going to open up System, and we're going to scroll down and look for our password settings container that I told you that would be in here as part of Windows Server 2016. We'll click these double right arrows to pop it over to the node, and then we'll go ahead and do an OK. And now notice we have this an option here on the left-hand pane. If I click on it, over on the right-hand side, we have a new option here. So I click on this. So we'll begin by giving us a name, user settings. And we can set a precedence in the event we have multiple PSOs, the lower number will win. We'll give this a 4. Then we have our minimum password length and history, meet complexity requirements, enforce minimum password age. We'll change that from 1 to 7 just so we have something different. Enforce the account lockout policy. Give them 10 attempts. So now we've created our policy or defined our policy, and now we're going to go under the directly applies to. We're going to click add, and we'll apply this to Vicky. Remember, you could use groups or a user. I'm going to use Vicky because I don't want to apply too much to my GG groups so it doesn't mess up any future demos. I'll click OK, and then I'll go ahead and do an OK, and we'll apply that new PSO that we created through the Active Directory Administrative Center to a specific user called Vicky.